by most of them to be an imbecile. But when the cameras are on, man, oh man, they cannot get enough of everything he says.
We are going to conquer the vast frontiers of science, and we are going to lead humanity into space and plant the American flag on the planet Mars.
How thin is Trump's skin? Well, let's just say Jim Carrey and Jimmy Kimmel barely tapped it, and he completely lost it. The two comedians went all in, mocking his speeches, his logic, or lack of it, and even his rocky marriage with Melania. And Trump, he did what he does best, spiraled into an all-caps meltdown, acting like late-night comedy is a national emergency. But here's the real question. Was the roast really that brutal? Or is Trump just allergic to criticism? Stick around, because his reaction might just be funnier than the jokes themselves. And if you love watching Trump lose his mind over jokes, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because let's be real, there's always another meltdown just around the corner. Carrey and Kimmel's comedy roast. If there's one thing that sends Trump into an all-caps Twitter rampage, it's late-night comedians, and this time, he got a double dose. Jim Carrey and Jimmy Kimmel teamed up for the ultimate roast, tearing into Trump's ego, contradictions, and even his marriage. Carrey, a one-man spectacle with a talent for turning reality into pure ridiculousness, cranked his Trump impression to the max, exaggerating every smug gesture and over-the-top promise. Meanwhile, Kimmel, a late-night assassin armed with razor-sharp sarcasm, tore into Trump's fragile self-image with effortless precision. The result? A brilliantly savage takedown that even Trump's most loyal supporters had to wince at. And of course, Trump absolutely could not handle it. Kimmel came out swinging with a brutal jab at Trump's ego, pointing out the obvious. Trump cares more about celebrity opinions than actual policies. The White House put out a memo warning about mass layoffs, Kimmel said. But don't worry, this won't affect the guy who brings Trump his 9 Diet Cokes a day. Ouch. That's Trump's priorities in a nutshell. Self-image first, country second, or maybe third. But the real comedy gold came when Kimmel exposed Trump's absurd contradictions. He mocked a bizarre government-wide email that supposedly asked employees to list 5 things they accomplished last week. Kimmel's take? Trump said they'd be fired if they didn't respond. Then he said they wouldn't. Then he said they'd be semi-fired. Now he says they'll be wood-fired with caramelized onions. The crowd lost it. And let's be honest, that's exactly how Trump's brain works. He starts with a simple idea, repeats it 5 times, adds a completely unrelated food reference, and somehow turns it into a policy. Then, of course, Kimmel had to bring up Melania. Because let's face it, no Trump roast is complete without her. Kimmel pointed out the obvious. While Melania may be physically present at Trump's events, her mind is anywhere but there. She's usually in the background like an AI-generated first lady. You just have to wonder, does she even want to be there? And honestly, we've all been asking that for years. The countless clips of her dodging Trump's hand like he's covered in grease don't exactly scream happily married. And Trump? Oh, you know he couldn't take the heat. His fragile ego was probably shattered into a million tiny pieces. And you just know he was hunched over his phone, rage typing a response about woke Hollywood elites and fake news late-night shows. Because for a guy who spent years throwing insults like confetti, he sure loves to play the victim when someone dishes it back. At the end of the day, Kimmel didn't even need to exaggerate. He just held up a mirror. And Trump? Well, he really, really hates what he sees. Melania, the mystery first lady. While Trump was busy melting down over comedians, Melania did what she does best, vanishing into the background. If there's one person who can out-silence a room faster than a bad joke, it's Melania Trump. And honestly, comedians love pointing it out. Jimmy Kimmel wasted no time calling out her permanent state of disinterest, joking that she always looks like she's starring in a hostage video. Melania was at Trump's fundraiser, and she looked like she was being held at gunpoint by her own contract. And let's be real, he's not wrong. Every time she appears in public, she has the expression of someone who just realized their free trial of marriage has no cancellation policy. But the real comedy gold? It's her disappearing act. Unlike past first ladies who actually, did things, Melania has mastered the art of being missing in action. She skips campaign rallies, avoids public statements, and rarely shows up for events. At this point, Bigfoot has been spotted more times than she has. And then there's the infamous hand-dodging moments. Oh, we've all seen them. Trump reaches for her hand and she swerves like a quarterback dodging a sack. It's subtle, but it screams volumes. Even when she's physically there, she's mentally on another planet. And honestly, who can blame her? Of course, Kimmel wasn't done yet. He ripped into her bizarre attempt at a Be Best campaign, a movement promoting kindness and anti-bullying while being married to the most aggressive cyberbully of all time. That's like launching an anti-smoking campaign while holding a lit cigarette. It's hypocrisy at its finest. And let's not forget her creepy Christmas decorations. Remember those blood-red Christmas trees she put up in the White House? They looked less like holiday cheer and more like a deleted scene from The Shining. Even people who love Christmas had to pause and wonder if Santa was gonna make it out alive. At this point, Melania's entire First Lady tenure feels like one long, drawn-out waiting game. She's just counting down the days until she can finally retire from pretending to care. Every event, every awkward forced smile, every time she dodges Trump's touch like it's coated in hot grease, she reminds the world that she might be the first person in history who's actively trying to get fired from a job that doesn't even pay. And the funniest part, she just might succeed. Trump's predictable meltdown. But let's now shift our attention to Trump. If there's one thing Trump loves more than talking about himself, it's playing the victim when someone else does. And after getting roasted into oblivion by Jim Carrey and Jimmy Kimmel, it was only a matter of time before he spiraled into a full-blown meltdown. Let's be real, Trump's ego is thinner than his hairline, and he takes late-night comedians more seriously than world leaders. The moment Kimmel and Carrey started mocking his marriage, his speeches, and his bizarre logic, you just know he lunged for his phone, rage typing in all caps, desperately trying to convince the world that he doesn't care. Clip time 128-140. And yet, we all know he cares more than anyone. This is the same man who spent 4 years in office complaining about TV ratings instead of, running the country. The idea of people laughing at him, that's his personal nightmare. The irony? He gives them so much material to work with. His meltdown formula is always the same. Step 1. Pretend he didn't watch the segment. Step 2. Claim the show is failing even if the ratings prove otherwise. Step 3. Threaten to sue because in his mind, making fun of him should be illegal. And let's not forget his go-to insults. Kimmel? A washed-up loser. Carrey? A nobody who's not funny. Late-night TV? Part of the deep state. It's like he has a bingo card of recycled comebacks, and no matter what happens, he just rearranges the same 5 insults like a malfunctioning AI. The funniest part? Trump can dish it out, but he absolutely cannot take it. This is a guy who has mocked people's appearances, called his opponents losers, and insulted entire groups of people on a whim. But the moment a comedian pokes fun at him, he acts like it's a national emergency. Remember, this is the same guy who rage-tweeted at Alec Baldwin for impersonating him on SNL and wanted federal agencies to investigate late-night comedians. Imagine being that sensitive while running a whole country. He wants to be seen as a tough guy, but let's be honest, he whines more than a toddler who dropped off their ice cream. Every joke about him sends him into a spiral, and honestly, that just makes the jokes even funnier. And let's face it, this won't be the last time. Give it a few days, and he'll be back at it again, finding a new reason to throw a tantrum while comedians stock up on fresh material. Because as long as Trump keeps talking, the jokes will write themselves. But here's something to think about. If he gets this worked up over comedians, how do you think he reacts behind closed doors, slamming his phone, ranting to Melania who's barely listening, or do you think he actually believes he's above being laughed at? Drop your take. I need to hear this. Oh, and if you want to stay on top of every roast, meltdown, and meme-worthy moment, go ahead and subscribe now. Because trust me, this show is far from over.